So yeah, yesterday we discussed about the constitutional amendment, draft bill that was presented in Parliament. In cabinet, and it was okayed in cabinet. There's a post that I saw from Hopewell. I reposted it, and it's saying that according to insiders who were in that meeting, General Chiwenga, he objected. It's being reported that two cabinet ministers confirmed that there was a heated exchange between President Emmerson Mnangagwa and Vice President Constantino Chiwenga yesterday during the presentation of the proposed amendments. They said that whilst Chiwenga was rebutting what had been presented, the President intervened twice, reminding him that he was the head of the state. And that they went to war in order to return home and govern as they wished, as the ruling party. How does that? How does ED and Chiwenga dress? But anyway, they get to one good reason. What's that calling me now? Let me see who's calling me. Somebody knows calling me. And did my phone calls gonna sing anything that so today the topic here says that voice note is on this topic, right? So the change that they want to bring in beneath this, they want to change the wording equity aboard the constitution. Ways are wording equity in accordance with the constitution. That is what they want to do. But what is it that they are dangling it? Nekuchinja kwavada kuita mutemo. Nekuchinja kwavada kuita at this section. As we all know, the Zimbabwe Defense Forces have got a role to protect Zimbabwe and its people. They've got a role to uphold this constitution. They've got a role to respect fundamental rights and freedoms. And they are expected to remain non-partisan. That is what section 212 says. So the wording to uphold this constitution, it signals that our army or the ZDF it means that they are bound to the constitution. And they must act in defense of the constitutional order. And they should not be in a position, or they should not be put in a position whereby they obey unlawful orders. We were wondering what happened on the August 1st. Who gave the order to go and kill civilians? And by upholding, this constitution, it means that they cannot act outside what they are mandated to do, the constitutional, limits. And they've got also a duty to resist any unconstitutional conduct. That is a very substantive obligation, and it is not a procedural one. That is what we need to know. In its state, when it comes to be upholding this constitution, but what the amendment seeks to do is to replace the wording to uphold this constitution with in accordance with the constitution. That kind of constitutional language that they are trying to use right there is a downgrading of the roles and responsibilities of the ZDF when it comes to the Constitution. Because when you're upholding, you are translating it to an active duty. They've got an active duty. But when we start to use the language in accordance with, it is a conditional compliance. So what we are having is, with the upholding of the Constitution, we are speaking of the wording that gives a mandate. The other one that is just ask them to operate within a framework. So what this government is proposing is saying, or the argument that they are using, or the argument that they are putting forward, is to say they want to substitute or to delete the active duty and replace it with the conditional compliance. And they are arguing that if they do that, it is going to be reinforcing sections 213 and section 214. What do these sections refer to? The two sections 213 and 214, they deal with one who can deploy the defense forces. So in our situation is the president. And the 214, so 213 speaks of who can deploy, and 214 speaks of the parliamentary oversight. So looking at how parliament has been formed. So when the government is making this claim that it is they want to align section 212 with the deployment provisions, and they're arguing that it is going to streamline things. That is what they are arguing. But if we cast a critical eye on this, the government is weakening the ZDF's duty to constitutionalism. Because if the ZDF is no longer going to be having that explicit obligation to uphold the Constitution, then their duty becomes that of following orders, obedience to orders, and not to defend the constitutional order. So basically, we risk creating a situation whereby the loyalty of the ZDF is going to shift from the Constitution to the executive, to Emmerson Mnangagwa. And their responsibility is going to be reduced, the responsibility to resist unconstitutional command. Because if you are now answering to the executive, it means you have to follow what the executive is following you. Is telling you, even if it is unconstitutional. So there's a profound shift there in the relationship, in the civil-military, relations. But we all know that every institution or every state organ is already acting in accordance with the Constitution anyway. So this amendment is never going to be adding anything, but it is going to be removing, something. That something that it is going to be removing is going to lead to situations whereby the accountability, the ZDF's accountability is going to be narrowed. When it comes to us as the citizens now, we've got a right to challenge the military actions by saying you failed to uphold the Constitution. But under the amendment that they are proposing, they are opening up to a test which becomes that we are going to be asking our army, did you act in accordance with the constitution? And this is a higher bar for us citizens and the courts, to prove. It's a higher bar because if the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, the duty is no longer to the constitution but to the chain of command, then the power of the president is expanding. The parliamentary oversight is going to be weakened, and the risk of the military to become more politically vulnerable is heightened. And this is exactly what constitutional democracy is against. So that is what we are facing as Vanani Zimbabwe with this amendment. I don't know, because some people were arguing that these changes, they want to water down the influence of the army, or water down or stop probably what happened in 2017. I'm not sure whether it is something that can be identified. Something I don't know whether it is a point that can be deduced from this. But what they are trying to do is the safeguards that are in place are going to be removed. I'm not sure what their thinking process is. I'm not sure what they want to achieve. But there are consequences to what they're about to do. Because as it stands already, right now, all what they are trying to do is already catered for in this constitution. There's no need to be changing the wording. There's no need for that. Our army, we've already come to know them within this constitution as having an independent constitutional responsibility. That in addition to following orders, they are also bound directly by this constitution. So if the latter is removed, then their responsibility, their independent responsibility is narrowed, making them or exposing them to a situation whereby they are at the mercy of the president, of authorized instructions, instead of defending constitutionalism itself. Zokuti kana imimi mukada kuendesa ningi any action yenge yaitwa the defense forces kumataredzi mosha, which is arguing kutizo they failed in their positive duty to prevent or resist unconstitutional acts. But now we are going to be asking the courts to look at something else that is different from the mandate that the ZDF is given under the current situation. Saka, I don't know. That is what we are facing with this new one that they want to bring. And the moment that parliamentary and public scrutiny is watered down, it means they can even command the army to go out there and shoot the people, kill the people. Like what Donald Trump was saying with dealing with the enemy, within. The army can be used, for that. Deployment of the army to deal with maybe strikes or demonstrations, which can be maybe dealt with by our riot police or the police, themselves. Saka, when we are looking at this, we don't want a situation whereby there is executive control or there's no oversight. And that is the path that they want to take us on. Yesterday we spoke about, the overreach. And you wonder by their amendment number 1, by their, resolution number 1. How did we get here? How come we are here? How come we are looking at watering down the responsibility of the army? How come we are looking at a situation that it is going to be difficult to have parliamentary oversight? How come we are looking at a situation whereby it's going to be difficult for you, the public, to hold the army accountable when it comes to their duty of upholding, that constitution? So if this alignment is a legitimate goal, I truly believe that, by removing that duty of upholding the constitution, they are merely embarking on a policy choice. And there's no technical necessity, in this, what, they want to do. Kutogadzira chinhu chavo, kutogadzira nyika yekuti zvinhu zvese zviri pasi pe-executive control. The army is supposed to be neutral. The army is supposed to be, army is for the people. Army is for the country. But if the army is now subject to the executive control, who knows what will happen when we even start to think about going out there to be demonstrating? You become, the enemy from within. And the army can be deployed anytime. It's only an instruction. And they have to obey the order. They have to obey the command. That will be coming from check building, because that is where most of the things happen. So this right here creates the agency, the citizen agency, to want to fight against this, to want to conscientize our people, to say this is wrong. We cannot have a situation, like this. We cannot. And it is up to you and me to do what is right. And that what is right, one thing, that I'm liking, now, is you are looking at the conversation. We are now looking at the conversation, that is going on, right now. A conversation of unity. A conversation of coming together. Kana vachitiudza mashoko avari kutiudza kana vachitiudza kuti, because it will just appear as if they are saying kuti aiwa tangobvisa mawedza atobva taisa amana wedze got consequences. The constitutional language, the way that the constitution is written, the language that is used is never cosmetic, like the way that they want to point out. Because the moment that we have our army, there's everything wrong with that. There's everything wrong with that. If you don't see wrong with izvozvo, aiwa, you are brain dead. Wakafa kare, wakafa pfungwa. Wakafa kare, wakafa pfungwa. There's a lot, ladies and gentlemen, that is intended with this draft bill. And the more we go deeper in scrutinizing it, we are going to find the things that are wrong, and there are so many of them. And they are creating a very dangerous situation for us, or a very dangerous environment for us. If all these things, ladies and gentlemen, see the light of the day, it's very dangerous. It is very dangerous. You cannot have an army, that cannot be challenged on the basis of accountability and constitutional, loyalty. We cannot create, that situation. It is the reality of the situation that is on the ground that all organs must act constitutionally. And that is provided for the army, that is provided under Section 212. And if we remove or if we narrow their independent responsibility to defend the constitutional order, then there's going to be a problem. There's no alignment that they are saying, they are talking about. Because doing what they want to do, the reality, ladies and gentlemen, is of doing what they want to do is not aligning anything to anything. It's like they are making a policy choice, which is very problematic. It's very problematic. And I'm liking, the language, that is being used, Kutizo. We are going to be fighting this thing, from different fronts. From the political front, from the legal front, from any front, that you can think of. Because there's no strengthening of any civilian control that can be had when they do what they want to do. Because already civilian control is already established in sections 213 and 214. So that change is not necessary. That change is not needed. We don't want that change. And therefore, that clause that is amending Section 212, it must be resisted on the basis that the ability of our defense forces to resist unconstitutional orders is going to be reduced. And that is key for safeguarding the relationship that we have as the civilians and the military.